Well, hey everybody, it's Sandy and welcome back to my channel dedicated to helping you advocate for your own health one topic at a time. So guys, today I want to talk about probiotics, gut biome, and fermented foods. So if you want to hear what I have to say, just keep watching. Yeah, it sounded like a mouthful. It's really not that much. So it wasn't too long ago that the concerns about the gut microbiome and the benefits of probiotics were sort of a fringe thing and really not widely accepted. So by now we know that a poor gut microbiome is associated with so many different diseases. It's not been established as to whether it's really causal. I think that's sort of a chicken and the egg thing, but it's definitely overrepresented in all kinds of GI disease, of course, autoimmune diseases, and even obesity. So I'm going to put some links down below that will take you to articles talking about the various benefits of probiotics, and not only that, but also disease states that are associated with substandard gut microbiome and whatnot. But for the purpose of this video, I really want to talk about how I get my probiotics. There are tons of probiotics out there if you go looking for something to buy. So first of all, I think it's better to get most of your probiotic without taking it in the form of a supplement unless there's some reason that you need the supplement. Now I'm going to insert my usual disclaimer, which is that I'm not giving any individual medical advice on this channel, and nothing that I say should be deemed as a substitute for the advice of your own qualified practitioner. Everybody brings to the table a unique set of their own circumstances, and there are times in which and conditions for which you might want to be taking a supplement. I'm also going to link in the description box a couple of supplements that I highly recommend. Those are not affiliate links. I don't do affiliate links on my channel with anything that has to do with people's well-being, health, personal safety. I don't want the room for bias that commissions would create. I don't want to prey on people's fears or anything like that. The probiotic supplement is meant to seed the intestines with all of these good bacteria. And it's crucial that the vast majority of it be able to survive the acidity of the stomach so that it can get to the intestines and do its job. You will find that the ones that have been tested and shown to be helpful, the gold standard is whether they can prevent episodes of C. diff. Very few have been studied like that, and they do tend to be expensive. So I'm going to put a few of them down below in the description box. One of those would be BioK Plus. That's used in some hospital systems. That comes also in the form of a drink that you can find in the health food store. I'm a little bit skeptical about how much that can help you because, again, that drink, it's not like an enteric coated pill. I don't know how much of that bacteria can really survive the stomach acid, so I stay away from that. But you can purchase a BioK Plus in the form of an enteric coated pill, and that's what's given in hospitals to patients who are treated with antibiotics. Another one that's been studied is actually not a bacteria, but it's a form of a yeast, and that is Florastor. That has been shown to be helpful with people who have C. diff. Again, I'm not recommending anybody do this. If you're diagnosed with C. diff, it's important that you get the proper treatment, but any of these are good choices if you're going to have to go on an antibiotic for some reason, that you can start taking these in advance and take them a few days past when you're done with your antibiotic regimen. And it can help so that you don't have too much of that depletion of the good bacteria. Two other probiotics that I think are close seconds would be UP4 and Culturelle. And with any of these, you're going to see 1,000 different formulations. And then if you go look through the ingredients, it's really the same bacteria in different orders. So a really important one in terms of surviving stomach acid is Lactobacillus GG. That wouldn't pertain for the Florastor, which is, again, not a bacteria, but a yeast. I will link all four of those supplements in their order down in the description box. Again, they're not affiliate links. I will have a link there just to take you to the product. So now that I've gone over probiotics with supplementation, I want to talk about probiotic and prebiotic so that you can maximize your own microbiome without relying too much on the supplementation. I think we all know that yogurt has some healthy probiotics in it. I do eat some yogurt. I know some people are completely adverse to dairy, but I will say that if your view on that is a little bit nuanced, like you'll have a little bit of dairy, I think this is a good place to start. I think that if you tend to have GI upset with dairy, it's going to be less of a thing with something like yogurt that is fermented. Now, if you find that you have trouble with some yogurts and not others, it might have to do with the whey. So some people like Greek yogurt. What Greek yogurt is it's basically strained yogurt. It's thicker than regular yogurt. Regular yogurt is a little more runny. Well, that's because it's basically been put on a yogurt strainer and the whey has been separated out. The whey is that kind of clear yellow liquid that comes out after you strain your yogurt. Well, the whey is what really has the sugars in it. And that's why people on keto often avoid dairy, because there is a certain amount of sugar, the lactose. But I have heard some people say that on keto, you really can have some Greek yogurt, particularly if you make it yourself. I'm going to get to that in a minute, because you can strain off almost all of that whey depending on how long you leave that yogurt in the strainer, so that you're really getting rid of the sugars that are in that. So that's really what causes upset for most people who have trouble with dairy. So you might find that any kind of fermented dairy is really much more gentle on your stomach. Now, yes, I just said, well, what about surviving the stomach acid? Right. I don't think there's any reason to believe that the vast majority of the probiotic that you ingest is going to survive your stomach acid. But I do think that when this becomes a regular part of your diet, that you do get the health benefits of the probiotics. Now, it's also important to get prebiotics. Those usually boil down to things that are fibrous, because those will then feed the bacteria in your colon so that they can continue to thrive. Another way to get probiotics is by eating fermented foods. And I have come to believe, after learning a lot about fermentation, that this is one of the main reasons that we have such depleted gut microbiome today. We are able to buy everything that we need, everything that we want at any hour of the day, exactly when we want it. But way back in the day, when people had to preserve things, because maybe you had a harvest at this time, but you didn't know when the next time you were going to have any of this particular vegetable, well, what you did is you fermented it. Now, people get really scared about fermentation. I have been fermenting my own vegetables for a long time. I seem to go in spurts, like I'll really get up the gumption to make several things and ferment them all, and then I won't do it for a while. But I've even made homemade kimchi, which is a Korean sauerkraut, essentially. It's got a whole lot more complex flavors because it's not only cabbage in there, but I make all these things fermented, and I've got to tell you, it's super easy. You need to get the equipment, but I think the reason that people get really scared about fermentation is because they think of it as canning. You see pictures of those same kinds of canning jars, those ball glass jars, and people immediately think, oh, sterilization and foodborne illness. It's nothing like that, guys. The last I looked, and I looked hard, I couldn't find any record of a single foodborne illness as a result of a problem with fermentation. Fermentation is very safe. It's not like canning. Yes, you have to be clean, but it's not something that's sterile, like when you can fruits and vegetables. So let's talk about sauerkraut, for example, because I think that's just the quintessential fermented food. It's basically fermented cabbage. That's all. You can put other things in it, but you basically slice up the cabbage real thin. You start out in a big bowl and you salt it with sea salt. Now, that salt, being hypertonic, will pull the fluid, the water, out of the vegetable, and pretty soon the vegetable is being brined. And then if you go to pack it into a jar, you'll find that it creates so much brine that you can actually submerge the vegetable. And that is one of the very important parts about fermenting vegetables, is everything must stay submerged. If everything isn't submerged, it's a really good environment for mold growth. I've not had it happen, but I have been told that if you do grow mold, you will know about it because it'll just be a terrible smell and you wouldn't be able to bring yourself to taste that anyway. So I haven't worried about it. Now, my daughter told me that she tried it and she told me about some horrible result that she got, and I'm pretty sure that was it. She threw it out. It was like a college experiment in a dorm room. I wouldn't even want to know about it. So once you have a brine sufficient to keep everything submerged, what happens is there's a chemical reaction that is anaerobic, meaning without air, and underneath that water, that brine, the bacteria and the yeast that are naturally present on those foods begin to feed on and break down the food, and there's a byproduct, which is lactic acid. So the food is actually being digested, if you will. For some people who have issues with digestion, like indigestion after eating fibrous foods, very often that's a diminished amount of digestive enzymes. And sometimes just taking a digestive enzyme supplement will help that. But eating fermented foods is a really good way around that problem. You also get the food a little bit broken down and it's a little bit gentler on the digestive system. Now, one of the questions I completely anticipate coming up is, well, what about bad bacteria? The truth is that it's almost impossible to grow bad bacteria underneath that brine. That might be theoretically more possible early on in the ferment, and that's why it's important to leave things that are fermenting for the period of time stated. So for sauerkraut, for example, you might taste it after 7 days, maybe 14, and after that you'd want to move it to the fridge. We'll continue to ferment even in the fridge, but just more slowly. But really, once you cross that 7-day mark, you've got enough lactic acid in there that you have a very acidic environment. So the pH is really too low for things like bad bacteria to proliferate. Now, there are some kinds of vegetables that you might want to ferment that won't make their own brine with just salt. So I'm thinking things like carrots, or if you ever want to make pickles. And with those, you just make a brine out of filtered water and salt. I've done those too, but I think the really fun ferments are the ones that create their own brine because the salt pulls enough liquid out of the vegetables. Yeah, so really my plan was just to bring up this topic in this video and start a conversation about it. I'll go into more detail if people would like me to, and I could even do a demo. I've actually started making my own yogurt, my own Greek yogurt. That's the newest ferment for me since I didn't used to have an Instant Pot. If you have an Instant Pot, yogurt is ridiculously easy to make, so much better and so much cheaper than yogurt that you buy in the store. But in addition to that, like I said, I do kimchi, I do sauerkraut. Kimchi kind of depends on what's available at the time. It's a seasonal thing. So let me know if you guys would like me to delve a little bit deeper into some discussion about fermentation or in the way of demonstration in the kitchen on things that I ferment. Let me know if you have any questions about this. I'm going to link some articles down in the description box. And until next time, be well. Bye-bye.